There was a small town where most people lived quiet and simple lives. In this town, there was a person who always looked at the sky with wonder. Since childhood, they had dreamed of flying, not just like a bird in an airplane, but in a real spaceship, one that could travel to faraway places beyond the clouds. But everyone around them thought these dreams were just silly fantasies. People told stories about space and stars as if they were meant only for astronauts or scientists. For most, it was impossible, but this person never stopped believing. One day, this person found something strange in an old garage sale. It was a strange-looking craft made from parts that looked like they belonged to different machines. It was not shiny or new. In fact, it looked worn out and very simple. What surprised the person was the price. It was only $200. The others at the sale ignored it or laughed quietly, saying, "Who would want to buy this old thing? It is not a real spaceship." But the person felt a strong pull toward this object. It felt special, even if it looked plain and small. The craft was shaped like a small pod, just big enough to hold one person inside. It had buttons, levers, and dials that seemed to come from different times and places. Some parts looked like they were from old radios, some from broken toys, and some from things the person could not even recognize. It did not look like the shiny, high-tech machines people see in movies or pictures from space agencies. Instead, it looked homemade, as if someone had put it together with hope and care rather than money and machines. The person decided to buy the craft. They took it home carefully, feeling excited but also unsure what exactly they had found. At first, the neighbors laughed. "Why waste money on that old thing? It will never fly," they said. Some even called it a junk spaceship. The person ignored the jokes because deep inside, they knew this was more than just junk. The person spent many days and nights studying the craft. They did not have a big workshop or fancy tools. All they had was a small garage, a few old tools, and a strong heart. Slowly, they began to clean it piece by piece. They learned the names of the buttons and levers. Some of the parts were broken, and some were stuck. But the person did not give up. Every small movement of the levers or turn of the dials felt like a secret code waiting to be solved. While others were busy with their normal daily routines, this person spent hours reading books about space and machines. They watched old videos about rockets and how spaceships worked. They dreamed of what it would be like to control this little craft. No one else believed it could be real or work properly, but the person felt a connection to it. It was like the craft was calling them, waiting for someone to understand it. As days turned into weeks, the person found small surprises hidden in the craft. A lever that moved smoothly when pressed just right, a button that made a soft beep, a little light that blinked like a secret message. It was as if the craft had a mind of its own, slowly waking up after years of silence. The person began to think that this was not just a random project or a child's toy. It was something important, something that many had missed. However, not everything was easy. Many nights were spent frustrated trying to figure out how the craft worked. Sometimes the person wanted to give up and sell it again. The machine seemed too old, too broken. The neighbors' laughter sometimes made the heart feel heavy. But every time the person looked at the little blinking light or the way a button clicked in a special way, hope returned. They told themselves, "If I can unlock its secret, it could change everything." Even the person's closest friends did not understand the fascination. They often said, "Why do you waste time on this? There is no spaceship here. It is just a pile of old parts." But the person knew they were different. They saw the craft not just with their eyes, but with their heart and mind. They saw potential where others saw only dust. The craft stayed in the garage, quiet but alive in its own way. The person talked to it sometimes, softly, as if it were a friend. "Show me what you can do," they whispered. "I believe in you." It was strange, but the machine seemed to respond with tiny clicks and lights. These small signs gave the person strength to continue. As months passed, the person collected more information. They wrote notes and drew diagrams about the parts and their functions. Slowly, the craft began to feel more familiar. It was like learning a new language, one that only the person and the craft could understand. The craft's secrets were not easy to find. They were hidden carefully, waiting for the right person to unlock them. In the town, people started to notice the change in the person. Instead of seeing failure or silliness, they saw passion and hope. Some began to ask questions, curious about what the person was doing. The person shared small stories, but kept the most important discoveries private. It was a secret adventure, a dream in progress. Deep inside, the person believed the $200 spaceship was more than just a machine. It was a reminder that sometimes great things come from small beginnings. It was a symbol of patience, faith, and the power of never giving up on a dream, no matter how impossible it may seem. The person dreamed that one day, this simple craft would fly, not just in their mind, but for the whole world to see. For now, the spaceship stayed quiet, waiting patiently. But the person knew its time was coming. They were ready to unlock its secrets and show everyone that even the most ignored things can hold the greatest surprises. The person knew that unlocking the secrets of the $200 spaceship would not be easy. Every day they worked quietly and patiently, even when no one else believed in the project. They had no special training, no fancy tools, and no big laboratory. All they had was a strong heart, an open mind, and a deep curiosity about how things worked. At first, the craft seemed to resist every attempt to bring it to life. Sometimes the levers wouldn't move smoothly. Some buttons were stuck, and parts made strange noises when touched. It felt like the spaceship was broken in many places, and fixing it would be almost impossible. The person spent hours trying to clean and repair small parts, using simple tools like screwdrivers and glue. They took apart pieces carefully, learning what each part did and how it connected to others. Many times the person felt tired and frustrated. There were moments when they doubted if the spaceship would ever work. Maybe I was wrong, they thought. Maybe it really is just old junk. But then something small would happen that gave them hope. A light blinking faintly, a button clicking when pressed just right, or a lever that suddenly moved smoother than before. These small signs kept their dreams alive. Friends and family saw how much time and energy the person spent on this project. Some thought it was a waste of time. "Why do you keep trying? No one cares about that old thing," they said. "You should focus on something more useful, something real." But the person smiled and said, "I believe it has a purpose. I just need to understand it." As the days passed, the person began to notice something strange about the spaceship. It was as if the craft was waiting for them. Some parts seemed to respond only to their touch. If someone else tried to move a lever, it would stay stuck. But when the person reached out, it moved slowly, as if recognizing them. This mystery made the person more curious. It felt like the spaceship was alive in its own way. At night, when the town was quiet and dark, the person often sat near the spaceship and talked to it softly. They whispered stories about the stars and faraway places. They told the spaceship about their dreams of flying beyond the sky and seeing the universe. Sometimes the spaceship answered with small noises or blinking lights like a secret language. Between friends, the person spent many hours reading books and watching videos about space travel and engineering. They wanted to learn everything they could to understand how the spaceship might work. Although the craft looked simple and old, the person believed it had hidden technology, something no one else had discovered. They studied designs of rockets and machines, trying to find clues that would help them unlock the spaceship's secrets. Slowly but surely, the person began to make progress. They repaired broken wires and fixed old batteries. They cleaned dusty surfaces and oiled rusty parts. They even created new pieces using simple materials when old ones were missing. Each small repair brought the spaceship closer to life. One day, the person found a hidden compartment beneath a panel on the spaceship's floor. It was locked, but the person was determined to open it. After hours of trying different tools and carefully moving levers, the compartment finally clicked open. Inside, there were strange drawings and small devices that looked like they belonged to another world. The person's heart beat faster. They knew this was a big discovery. This moment made the person believe even more that the spaceship was special. It was built with care and knowledge that was not common. Maybe the original maker wanted only the right person to find these secrets. The person felt proud and excited, but also a little nervous. What else would they discover? Was this the key to making the spaceship fly? Despite the progress, the person kept their work private. They did not want others to take the craft or make fun of it. The spaceship was their secret, a personal mission. They spent many late nights in the garage working by the light of a single lamp. Sometimes they lost track of time, so focused were they on understanding every button, lever, and wire. Outside, the world continued as usual. The neighbors went about their daily lives, still thinking of the spaceship as a forgotten oddity. But the person was changing too. They grew more confident and patient. They learned to listen to the small signs the craft gave them and to trust their instincts. This was not just a machine anymore. It was a puzzle waiting to be solved. The person also faced many challenges. Sometimes, parts would break again after being fixed. Other times, the batteries would die without warning. But instead of giving up, the person learned to be creative. They found new ways to solve problems, sometimes using things they found around the house or in the town's scrapyard. Each problem became a new chance to learn and grow. Slowly, the person's story began to spread. A few curious neighbors asked questions, wanting to know why the person spent so much time with the old craft. The person smiled and said it was a dream, something worth trying no matter how strange it seemed. Some people shook their heads, but others admired the person's determination. One afternoon, while working on the spaceship, the person felt something different. A button pressed itself. A small panel shifted a little and a faint light appeared on the dashboard. It was the first time the spaceship seemed to respond on its own. The person's eyes widened with surprise and hope. "You're waking up," they whispered. From that day on, the spaceship showed more signs of life. Lights flickered, small motors hummed quietly, and parts moved gently when the person touched the controls. It was as if the spaceship was slowly unlocking itself, waiting for the right moment to show its full power. The person realized that unlocking the spaceship was not just about fixing parts. It was about patience, trust, and believing in the impossible. The spaceship and the person were connected in a way that others could not understand. It was a silent friendship built on hope and discovery. At night, under the stars, the person dreamed of flying. They imagined the spaceship lifting off the ground, rising through the clouds, and reaching the vast universe beyond. The journey was just beginning, and the person knew many challenges still lay ahead. But with each new discovery, the dream felt closer and more real. The $200 spaceship, once ignored and forgotten, was beginning to come alive in the hands of someone who never gave up. It was a story of quiet persistence in a world that often doubts what it does not understand. And this story was far from over. One quiet evening, after many months of hard work and patience, something extraordinary happened. The person was in the garage, carefully adjusting one of the spaceship's levers. They had been trying to figure out how to start the small engine that sat inside the craft. Suddenly, a soft click echoed in the still air. A hidden panel on the side of the spaceship slid open slowly, almost as if it was moving by itself. The person froze, eyes wide with surprise and excitement. They reached out carefully and touched the panel. Behind it, They saw a set of glowing buttons and small screens, unlike anything they had noticed before. The spaceship was no longer just a simple machine made from old parts. It was a carefully built craft with secret technology hidden inside. Lights on the dashboard flickered to life, bathing the small space in a soft blue glow. The hum of a small motor began to fill the garage. The spaceship was awakening. The person could hardly believe what they were seeing. The $200 spaceship, which many had ignored and laughed at, was now showing signs of something amazing. For a long time, the person sat quietly, studying every detail of the newly revealed panel. There were buttons labeled with strange symbols and a small screen that showed numbers and lines that moved like waves. It was like a control center, ready for use. The person pressed a button gently, and a soft voice came from a small speaker. It was faint and unclear, but sounded like a welcome message. The person felt a wave of emotion. It was as if the spaceship was alive and trying to communicate. They realized that this was not just a machine put together randomly. Someone had built it with great skill and care, hiding its true power behind a simple, cheap exterior. Over the next few days, the person explored the new panel carefully. They learned that the spaceship had several secret features. It had small engines that could move it a little, navigation controls that showed directions, and a tiny system that seemed able to collect information about the air and the sky outside. Every discovery was a surprise, and made the person more determined to unlock its full power. Even though the spaceship was waking up, there were still many mysteries to solve. The person found notes hidden inside the ship, written in a strange language. They spent hours trying to understand the meaning, using books and online resources. Slowly, they realized these notes were instructions left by the original builder, a guide to how the spaceship worked and how it could be flown. This guide was not easy to understand. It used symbols and words that the person had never seen before. But the person did not give up. Each day, they learned a little more, matching the instructions to the buttons and levers they had. It felt like solving a puzzle that had been waiting for years for the right person to come along. Word began to spread quietly about the person's discovery. A few trusted friends were invited to see the spaceship's new features. They were amazed and could hardly believe that such a simple and cheap machine held so much hidden inside. Some started to ask questions about who built the spaceship and how it came to be in that small garage. The person wished they knew the answer too. There was no clear history or story attached to the craft. It seemed to have appeared out of nowhere, waiting for someone to find it and unlock its secrets. This mystery added to the excitement, but also to the challenge. Meanwhile, the person kept working hard to test the spaceship's functions. They discovered that the small engines could move the craft forward and backward a little, but it was not ready for full flight yet. The navigation system could sense the direction of the wind and even measure altitude in a simple way. These features gave the person hope that one day the spaceship could really fly beyond the ground. The person also realized that the spaceship was designed to be safe. It had small systems to protect the pilot from strong winds or cold air. It had lights that could guide the way at night and sensors that could warn about obstacles nearby. The more the person learned, the more they admired the genius behind the craft's design. But with these exciting discoveries came new questions and worries. Could the spaceship really fly? Would it be safe to try? The person thought carefully about every test they performed. They never rushed. They knew patience was the key to success. One afternoon, the person decided to try a small experiment. They started the engines gently and watched as the spaceship moved forward a few feet on its own. The sound of the motor filled the garage, and the small craft shook slightly. It was the first time the spaceship had moved by itself. The person's heart raced with joy. This was a big step forward. However, the experiment also showed that the spaceship needed more work. The engines were weak, and the control system was delicate. The person took careful notes about what to fix and how to improve it. They promised themselves that they would continue until the spaceship was ready for a real flight. As the weeks passed, the person's connection with the spaceship grew stronger. They began to think of the craft as a partner, a friend who had waited for a long time to be awakened. They spoke softly to it, encouraging it to keep showing its secrets. The spaceship responded with lights and sounds as if it understood. At night, the person dreamed of flying in the spaceship. They imagined lifting off from the garage, rising through the clouds and looking down at the world below. The stars would shine brightly, and the spaceship would carry them to new places, new adventures. These dreams kept the person motivated even when days were hard. Outside, some neighbors still doubted. They could not believe that the small craft could do anything special. But others began to watch with curiosity. The story of the $200 spaceship that had started to unlock itself was spreading quietly, inspiring people to believe in the unexpected. The person knew this was only the beginning. The spaceship had unlocked a small part of its power, but many secrets were still hidden. The journey ahead would be long and full of challenges. But the person was ready. They had the patience, the heart, and the belief to keep going. The $200 spaceship, once ignored by everyone, had now opened a door to a new world. For the person who had unlocked it, this was the most amazing moment of their life, a moment that would change everything. As news about the $200 spaceship slowly spread, more people became curious. Some were still doubtful, but others wanted to see it for themselves. The person who had been working so hard to unlock the spaceship's secrets was careful to share what they could, but they also wanted to keep some discoveries private. It was a delicate balance. Too much attention could be overwhelming, but some support and curiosity could help. One day, a small group of neighbors and friends came by to visit the garage. They watched in amazement as the person showed them how the spaceship's panels opened and how the lights flickered to life. The small engines made a soft hum, and the control buttons glowed gently. Everyone could feel that this was not an ordinary machine. Some of the visitors asked many questions. Where did this spaceship come from? Who built it? The person smiled but did not have clear answers. I don't know for sure, they said. It was found and bought for $200, but I believe it is very special, made by someone with great knowledge. The visitors also noticed something strange about the design. It was both simple and complex at the same time. The spaceship looked homemade, but the parts inside were clever and advanced. There were small sensors that could measure air pressure, temperature, and direction. Some parts seemed to be from old technology, but others looked like they came from the future. The person explained how they had slowly unlocked each part, learning to make the spaceship move a little and understand its controls. They told stories of the long nights spent repairing broken wires, cleaning dusty panels, and studying strange instructions hidden inside the craft. Everyone was impressed by the dedication and patience it took. Despite the excitement, there were still many questions and doubts. Could such a small and inexpensive spaceship really fly beyond the ground? Was it safe to try? Some people worried that it might be dangerous or that it would never work. The person listened carefully to these concerns and promised to be careful. The person continued to test the spaceship every day. They recorded notes about each new discovery and kept improving the craft little by little. The engines became stronger and the controls more responsive. The small screen on the dashboard showed clearer information about the environment outside. The spaceship was beginning to feel more alive. Sometimes, the person would take the spaceship outside the garage to test it in the open air. They found a quiet field nearby where the spaceship could move without obstacles. The engines would push the craft a few feet forward or backward, and the person would guide it using the small levers. These tests were slow and careful, but they proved that the spaceship could move and respond. During these moments, the person felt a deep connection to the craft. It was like a silent partnership, built on trust and hope. The spaceship seemed to understand the person's touch and thoughts. The person believed that the craft was waiting for the right pilot, someone patient and kind enough to unlock its true power. As the spaceship became more responsive, the person started dreaming bigger. They imagined flying it higher and farther, reaching the clouds and beyond. They pictured themselves looking down on the earth from above, seeing the towns and rivers like tiny lines. These dreams gave the person hope and joy. At the same time, the person knew they had to be careful. Flying a spaceship, even a small one, was dangerous if done without proper preparation. They studied safety procedures and made sure every test was done with the highest care. The person wanted the spaceship to fly one day, but only when it was ready. During this time, the person also tried to find out more about the spaceship's origins. They reached out to experts online and shared photos and videos of the craft's hidden panels and controls. Some people were amazed and said the spaceship was unique. Others thought it might be part of a secret project or an old invention forgotten by time. The mystery made the story even more exciting. Who built this $200 spaceship? Why did they hide its true power so carefully? Was it waiting for someone, like the person to come and unlock it? The person hoped to find answers one day, but also knew that some mysteries might never be fully solved. Meanwhile, the person's story began to inspire others. People started to believe that even the smallest and simplest things could hold great surprises. The $200 spaceship became a symbol of hope, patience, and the power of believing in the impossible. One evening, as the person was working late in the garage, the spaceship suddenly made a soft humming sound that was louder and clearer than before. The lights on the dashboard shone brightly, and the small engine vibrated gently. It was as if the spaceship was ready for a new step. The person smiled, feeling a mix of excitement and calm. They knew the moment they had been waiting for was near. The $200 spaceship, once ignored and laughed at, was now almost ready to fly in a new way. This was not just a machine anymore. It was a dream that had been locked away, waiting for the right time and the right person. The person believed that soon they would unlock the final secret and show the world what this small spaceship could really do. The journey had been long and full of challenges, but it was far from over. The $200 spaceship had already changed the person's life and the lives of those who believed in it. And now, the next chapter was about to begin. After months of hard work, the person finally reached the moment they had dreamed about for so long. The $200 spaceship, once ignored and forgotten by almost everyone, was about to show its true power. It was no longer just an old, cheap machine. It was a symbol of hope, patience, and the magic of believing in what others might not see. The person prepared carefully for this important day. They checked every part of the spaceship again and again, making sure everything was ready. The engines were strong, the controls were smooth, and the small lights on the dashboard shone brightly. The spaceship looked alive and ready for a new journey. Outside, the sky was clear and calm. It was the perfect day for a test flight. The person took a deep breath and climbed inside the small cabin. The seat was tight, but comfortable. They fastened the seatbelt and reached for the controls. Their heart was pounding with excitement, and a little fear, but mostly hope. Slowly, they started the engines. The soft hum grew louder, and the spaceship began to vibrate gently. The lights on the dashboard blinked, and the small screen showed information about the surroundings. The spaceship was awake and ready. With steady hands, the person pushed the throttle forward. The spaceship moved smoothly along the ground at first, then slowly lifted off. The feeling was like a gentle rise on a swing, calm but thrilling. The person looked out the small window and saw the world growing smaller below. The $200 spaceship, once ignored by everyone, was flying. The person smiled wide. This was the moment they had waited for, the moment when dreams turned into reality. The spaceship rose higher and higher, moving carefully through the air. The engines worked perfectly, and the controls responded to every move the person made. As the spaceship flew, the person thought about all the times they had felt alone in this dream. The nights spent working in silence, the doubts from others, the moments when giving up seemed easier. But now all of those moments felt like steps on a path leading to this flight. The person looked out and saw the world from a new point of view. The fields and houses looked like tiny shapes, and the sky stretched endlessly. The stars were just beginning to appear as the sun started to set. It was more beautiful than anything the person had ever imagined. During the flight, the person tested the spaceship's features carefully. The navigation system helped them find their way, the safety sensors kept the craft steady, and the small engines powered smooth movement. Everything worked together like a perfect team. After a while, the person gently brought the spaceship back down. The landing was smooth, like a feather touching the ground. When the wheels touched the earth, the person felt a deep sense of happiness and accomplishment. The $200 spaceship had flown, and it had flown well. Word about the flight spread quickly. People came from near and far to see the little craft that could fly. Many were amazed and inspired by the story. They saw that something old and simple could become extraordinary with hope, patience, and belief. The person shared their experience openly. They told stories about the hard work and small victories that led to this moment. They reminded everyone that dreams are not impossible. They just need time, care, and a little courage. The $200 spaceship became more than just a machine. It became a symbol of what one person can do when they refuse to give up. It showed that sometimes the most ignored things hold the greatest secrets. It proved that magic can be found in places others overlook. The person continued to work with the spaceship, dreaming of new journeys and new discoveries. They believed that this flight was only the beginning. There were many more mysteries to unlock, many more adventures waiting in the stars. But no matter what happened next, the person knew one thing for sure. The $200 spaceship had changed their life forever. It had taught them to believe in the impossible and to never stop searching for the magic hidden in the world. And with that belief, the person was ready to face whatever came next, with the spaceship by their side and the stars above.